take projection.
It's Friday morning, and you know what that means. It's time for another episode of the Alabama Slam podcast. I'm your host, Corey Hanna.
What's going on, guys? It's Patrick Akers.
And let's get into it, man. First off, the big rumor for the week is there's some stuff swirling around Drew McIntyre. Rumors about his contract ending soon, and could he walk, and he's unhappy with his current situation at WWE, and et cetera, et cetera. So just go ahead and tell me what you're thinking on it, Patrick.
I feel like, not to pat ourselves on the back yet again, but Pat, I feel like did we not call this like a couple months ago? I feel like we said something similar where we were like, hey, AEW needs to get this locker room bullshit under control because there could be guys coming up soon like Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins that could be wanting just to change the scenery, and they're not going to come to AEW if it's a damn hellscape backstage.
Yeah.
And then la-di-da, here's this rumor this week on the heels of AEW's Wembley Stadium announcement, which I think these things have to go hand in hand, right? Drew McIntyre is a UK superstar, beloved by all that crowd over there. And then here comes this AEW Wembley Stadium announcement, which is the biggest stadium, right, in Drew McIntyre's backyard, basically. I don't know. Is there some, is this a where there's smoke, there's fire type of thing? It's odd timing, isn't it? That all Drew McIntyre's the talk of the rumor mill.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot swirling there. Like, first it was, even I guess it was a couple of weeks ago, there was like, oh, his contract could be coming up soon, but there wasn't any real clarity on it. And then was it late last week? It was probably after we fucking dropped our episode last Friday, because that's how things go.
Yeah.
But there was a report that came out. It was like, yeah, he's real unhappy with his current situation with the company and the way he's being booked. So, which, he got a real fucking big event at Mania. I don't, unless he's just happy with the direction in general. I don't know why you'd really be mad at that, but
yeah, but he was basically second fiddle, right, to this Gunther Sheamus thing. Like Gunther and Sheamus they had a history going back to Cardiff, right? In the stellar match that they had, and then Drew McIntyre was just inserted into the middle of this, where he's basically like Sheamus's best friend, and then they do like this weird angle. Like Drew McIntyre, I think, and rightfully so, if he looks at himself in the mirror, just based off his physique, his physicality, the fact that he's a great promo, he's a great wrestler, he's probably looking at that main event and being like, that should be me. Like, why am I not booked like damn Roman Reigns? Why am I not booked like Cody Rhodes? And he probably has a lot of, he probably is correct in assuming that. Now, the thing that's crazy about this is that if his contract expires, this is not one of those situations where he has to wait, X amount of days and he has a non-compete. He can literally walk off WWE television right into AEW.
Yeah, isn't that what Danielson pretty much did?
Yeah. And so, like, it's like I said, it's odd timing. Like, if you're Tony Khan in AEW, you don't try to book Wembley Stadium unless you think you have a shot at selling that motherfucker out.
Yeah.
And the only way that you could think about that you would have any kind of inclination that you might sell that out is you have to have a bunch of like aces up your sleeve and potentially a CM Punk return or a debuting superstar. And like if CM Punk's return is back on this card at Wembley, if that's his first match back and it's Drew McIntyre's first match in AEW, after he's debuted probably like a week or two before, which is probably what happens. And then you can potentially have that card and have it fill out with the likes of like Hangman Page versus Okada, because that rumor has been floating around. They're like, Okada's talking about how he would love to work with Hangman. That's a hell of a match.
Yeah.
And then you can put Bryan Danielson on this card and Jon Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli and Adam Cole and Chris Jericho. And I mean, the star power, and if you get Vikingo from AAA, if you call in a favor, get him on this card. Like,
yeah,
we talked about, we thought AEW, could possibly put 50 or 60,000 people in this arena. We didn't ever think it would sell out. I'm not so sure that they don't put 90,000 people in this arena if it all comes together.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Punk return happens before that. There's just too much talk about him in the headlines lately, and too many hints that he keeps dropping. So I don't know. I feel like he might be back at a pay-per-view between here and there. But would you say August? Is that Wembley, right?
August 27th. Yeah. Now Punk might be back, but I don't know if they do. I don't know if they do any kind of Punk against the Elite thing until August. Yeah, he might come back, but he ain't.
Yeah,
he ain't. I don't know if he's wrestling against those guys until August.
Right.
Because you can sell out. Like AEW has sold out these regular 20,000 seat arenas for pay-per-views, right? That's never been a problem. But you got to pull out the big guns and the big matches if you want to put that many people in a stadium. It's a different feel.
There's only so much you can do with setting up your stage and the surrounding area to fill some seats before it looks like you've gone a little above and beyond.
Yeah, and people already, out there in the mainstream wrestling community already feel like you're second fiddle at WWE, so you don't want to give them any more ammunition of having empty seats, because that's the only thing people will talk about, right? Like, you'll see those pictures on Reddit and be like, well, here's a whole section of just blank seats. Like, you want to put as many bodies in that place as possible.
Yeah.
And you could, Drew McIntyre coming into AEW sure would do it. And he would have to come in as, one of the things too is Drew McIntyre he's a big dude, like physical and stature, and like in WWE, he doesn't stand out that much, but he still stands out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But like in AEW, he's going to be a damn monster.
So let's just say that he does jump ship when his contract is up and decides to go to AEW. Like, do you immediately try to get a strap on him, or do you still try to keep building up some of your younger folks like Ricky Starks? Excuse me, Ricky Starks eventually, or any of the other people we've talked about in the past?
That's a good question, because you don't want to immediately have the WWE guy come in and win your title, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also, it's Drew McIntyre, and he's 6'4", and he's 240 pounds. And when he stands across the ring from an MJF, he's going to tower over him. And so, I don't know. I don't know how you bring him in. And obviously, too, he's probably going to want some kind of guarantees if he's coming in. If he's leaving the home that he's known for a long time in WWE and he's coming to AEW, he might want to win the strap, right? He might be telling Tony Khan, if I'm coming in, I want to be the guy. I want to be on all the trucks. I want to be on the front of the posters. I want to have the AEW World title around my waist. Like, I want to be the guy in a company in a way that I haven't been able to be in WWE because Roman Reigns has been there, or Seth Rollins has been there, or whatever. So yeah, that's that will be a unique challenge, but I think it's one that's worth it. Just because you have the UK backing with Drew McIntyre. Like, there's just a lot of different avenues that you could use him for. And he's an asset. I think he's 37, so you could probably get like 4 or 5 more good years out of Drew McIntyre. And he's used to doing this before, right? Like, the whole reason he came back to WWE, he had this huge renaissance on the indie scene. Like a lot of the UK indie scene that kind of popped off in the last couple of years was because of Drew McIntyre, aka Drew Galloway, coming over there after being released from WWE and really kind of doing what Cody Rhodes did, but on like a much smaller scale. Where he's, you can find Drew Galloway matches where in the UK, I forget what the company's for, but like the ring looks like it's only like 2 feet long, and he's wrestling in front of a packed house, and people are just going crazy. So, this is something he's used to, and I feel like he's probably is better suited for an AEW than he is for WWE. As weird as that might sound. Just giving, how jacked he is and how big he is. And, he fits the stereotypical WWE superstar. But I think his persona and the aura around him kind of feels a little bit more rough around the edges in a way that I think will play better in AEW than it has in WWE. And that could be the reason why he's not at the top of the card right now in WWE.
Yeah, could be. I mean, that's all interesting stuff to consider. Yeah, it's crazy. Like at first when I saw the rumors about the contract expiring, I first thought it was going to be later this year, but I can't remember if you said this now before we started recording or after, but it could be sooner rather than later, right?
Yeah, all the rumors were just like it would expire soon. We never got a date, but like soon feels like in a couple months, right? It doesn't feel like the end of this year.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's just odd timing that this has started coming down the rumor mill on the heels of AEW announcing their biggest show they've ever done in this dude's backyard. So
yeah,
I don't know. Does he? And this all could be getting leaked out by Drew McIntyre himself, right? He could be putting this stuff out there to engage in a bidding war between WWE and AEW.
The great bidding war of 2023.
Yeah, 2023 could be over McIntyre. So
yeah,
and I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure he probably didn't get a guarantee from Tony, where Tony was just like, whatever they're going to offer you, I'll match it. I'll match it, and you can work 1/10 of the schedule.
Yeah, you can work 1 day a week.
So, I mean, that's a pretty sweet gig, right?
Yeah.
Because he's going to command over $1 million easy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something. That's a little crazy. I say let's switch gears a little bit and get into some of the in-ring stuff from this last week. Wasn't a huge week in terms of in-ring work. Couple interesting things happened, though, that we do want to touch on. The first was on Friday night. Matt Riddle ends up being the guy that comes out and saves Sami Zayn at the end of SmackDown after he got beat by Jey Uso. I'm not... I've never been the biggest Matt Riddle fan. I mean, he looks good in the ring and stuff, but like... For those of y'all that have been listening recently, my wife started watching wrestling maybe a month or two ago, just leading up to Mania with me, and she was like, "Who is this dude without any shoes on?"
Yeah.
So I had to give her a little background. Yeah. I mean, I told her, I was like, he's a former MMA guy or whatever, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I don't know about this, man. What do you think? What do you think about it?
I mean, it kind of makes sense from a storytelling point, just because Matt Riddle has, before he went off to rehab, one of his last stories in WWE was going up against the Bloodline and Roman Reigns. So it kind of makes sense that he comes back. It's just kind of a letdown, right? From where we were. And probably this was always going to be the case, coming off the high that was WrestleMania and having Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens and that beautiful story that had unfolded over months. Like we talked about a couple weeks ago, like the story has to keep going in wrestling. It never ends. So like it's only, it's safe to assume you were going to have some kind of lull post WrestleMania. Yeah, I mean, we'll see where it goes. It's fine, I guess. It's just WWE, both SmackDown and Raw just felt weird, didn't it?
Yeah.
And AEW felt a little weird too.
Yeah. I thought just like last week, I thought SmackDown was a little more cohesive than Raw. But all in all, like I only have a couple of quick things for us to even touch on, and we're a couple things from AEW as well. Although I did just think of one thing that I forgot to put in the notes. But yeah, I don't know, man. Riddle's he's not ever been my favorite. It does make sense. I see what you're saying for him to come back in and be like, hey, let me jump back in this storyline. Before Sammy and KO took it over. But it just, I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean,
it's tough, like you said, after the high of Mania and what we thought was going to happen there, and then you got, Sammy got beat on Friday, and then KO got beat on Monday, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, this is the part where, in our WrestleMania show last week, I talked about the analogy of like watching a Netflix show that's 10 episodes and being like, It was all right, but it would have been a really good movie.
Yeah.
This feels like in the Netflix series analogy, we're at like episode 5 and we're just kind of like stretching, and it starts to get a little bit like, all right, it's feeling a little stale here.
Yeah, I need to probably take the idea that I sent to one of my boys earlier. Some of y'all may know I've got a Star Wars podcast. It's been on pause for a little while because one of my homeboys is recovering from neck injury. But we've got a text thread about Star Wars, and he was talking about the last couple episodes of Mandalorian before this one. And I was like, look, bro, I was like, they can't all be cowboys. I was like, sometimes you just got to get from point A to point B, right? And then I was like, then you get the reward of the payoff. Like in this case, the Mandalorian that they aired yesterday was a fucking banger. So I know I need to take that approach to wrestling, but I think I'm still feeling a little betrayed by the Bloodlines story at Mania. Other than the fact, Sammy and Kevin got the win, that was cool, but just the whole Roman thing.
Yeah, it just feels like it's all like this is the place that we're stretching, right? And it's not even really like WWE's focus right now, because the big focus coming out of going into WrestleMania Backlash is obviously we have to keep Cody busy, so they're going to do this thing with Brock. But then it's the Rey Mysterio and Dominic thing, right? With Bad Bunny being inserted, like that's the thing at WrestleMania Backlash. So like that's what kind of the A story is going to be until we get to there, right? And then coming out of Backlash, there'll be another A story. And then by the time we come around to SummerSlam, I feel like all this will pick up again. We're like Roman will be back in the mix, and Cody and all this stuff will be back around it. Like, so it just, we're running on the treadmill a little bit. Not to say that there's not entertaining stuff coming out of it. Dominic Mysterio continues to. If you didn't think this motherfucker was the biggest heel in the company, that damn crowd Friday night would not let him get a word out.
No.
And you know how we talked about like good luck keeping Rhea Ripley a heel. Like it ain't gonna happen. The crowd loves her.
Yeah,
she's badass. Like she's gonna be a babyface. All of Judgment Day will pretty much be a babyface here, I think, pretty soon. With the exception of Dominic, there's just no the crowd. They ain't having it. Yeah. But that's just kind of where the momentum is right now. And then obviously Trish and Becky, like that'll be a thing.
Yeah.
So some of these guys who have kind of carried the company for the last couple months, like Sammy and Kevin and the Bloodline and Roman, I think they're just going to kind of spin their wheels a little bit and let some of these other people kind of come to the forefront until SummerSlam rolls around. That'll be the next big thing.
Well, that kind of leads me into the next thing I want to talk about with the ending of Raw with Sammy and Riddle coming out to help KO after he gets beat by Solo. Like, why can't we just go ahead and, because we just saw Sammy lose on Friday, we saw Kevin lose a singles match on Monday. Why do we have to do that? Why can't we just insert some like LA Knight matches or somebody else, like get somebody else some play in there, and then maybe bring these stories back in? Because I don't know that these singles matches are doing anything to help anybody.
Yeah, I mean they're just like I said, they're probably just stretching. I would imagine at Backlash it'll be like a 6-man tag, right? Don't you think? Solo and the Usos versus KO, Sammy, and Riddle. The company clearly has they see a lot of potential in Solo Sikoa. If listeners know that I'm not the biggest Solo Sikoa, well, that sounds harsh. He's cool. I just don't know if he is going to live up to the potential that WWE sees in him. Mm-hmm. For him to be put in these positions where he's beating a Kevin Owens. I mean, they've protected Solo Sikoa more than they've damn near protected anybody. The only person that's beat Solo, right, is Cody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that they clearly have a lot invested in Solo. For reasons, we haven't even heard this dude talk. So, like, is he going to have any kind of personality? He can't just be, I don't think he can be that size and be badass, silent, stoic, arms crossed, world beater the way he's presented.
Yeah.
I think it's going to get old really quickly. But who knows? Anyway, That'll probably be what happens at Backlash, though, the 6-man tag. And yeah, it is just weird that we just keep rehashing this stuff, and other guys are being left off. Like you mentioned, LA Knight. Ricochet kind of doesn't have anything to do now. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I know they had some travel issues Monday night, and that played into some things. So maybe there was other stuff supposed to happen that they had to pivot at the last minute.
Yeah, that could have been it too.
Yeah, at least Monday didn't seem like the shit show that last Monday did.
Well, no, because probably pedo mustache old McMahon wasn't in the back. By all accounts. Who knows?
Yeah.
Also, going back on that mustache, has anybody told that guy that it's not a good idea? Why are these billionaire dudes so fucking stupid?
No, nobody tells that man no, I bet. No. I mean, if they do, they don't have a job for very long.
That's so, I don't know. Growing up, I always thought, and I'm talking about when I was little, with the people with the most money, they got to be the smartest people, right? And then you get older and you go, oh no, they're some of the dumbest. A lot of these people just lucked into this. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you do shit like have a mustache, you can't even. I feel like you're not even supposed to change your facial hair structure when you get past a certain age. You can't. A mustache is not something you pull out at 77 years old.
I mean, a mustache is fine, but I mean, this man is on one of them Pierre from France looking mustaches, like the little pencil mustache. It's like the bad guy mustache.
Yeah, he looks like he would be the Bond villain in a James Bond movie that was produced by what's that? Got Roger Corman or something like that? Is that the shitty filmmaker dude? Yeah, it'd be like that. Like if Roger Corman was doing a fucking Bond movie, he'd put Vince McMahon as the bad guy, and it would get
with
a
that
laugh.
mustache.
Yeah, with that mustache. Yeah.
Yeah. You can rock certain mustaches, but not that one.
I don't even know if you can rock a mustache in 2023. Honestly, I don't know if you can.
Strider on the Braves. Come on.
Yeah, but it's like ironic. He's doing it ironically though. He ain't doing it Vince McMahon ain't doing this shit ironically.
Come on. Yeah, I mean, I get it.
Vince McMahon's on CNBC talking about a merger of a 20-something $billion company, and he went with that mustache. That's a choice.
Yeah, that was a choice.
Yeah, it's a choice. Yeah, Spencer Strider's just it's baseball. It's baseball. There's 162 games. You got to do something to entertain yourself, or you fucking go crazy. So you just have a little mustache.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry to throw it off.
Yeah. Well, let's switch gears to AEW. We haven't talked about the Friday night shows in a while, but I did want to touch on, and this will be an unusual one, the Jade Cargill versus Billy Starks Battle of the Belts. We've shared our thoughts about Jade Cargill plenty of times, but this one's more about her opponent for the night. Because we saw Billy wrestle here in Huntsville at the GCW show a few months back. And it was funny kind of watching some of the reactions on Twitter and Facebook and stuff to, I would go look at certain Facebook threads or whatever. And they were talking about this kid doesn't need to be out there, blah, blah, blah. And then there were, a bunch of other people that were like, you have no idea what you're talking about. She's one of the best and so on and so forth. But yeah, man, I thought she went out there and put on a great show with Jade. Did you get to watch it?
I didn't actually watch it. I did see some of the discourse online though about what you were talking about. The people she doesn't deserve to be out there or whatever. She shouldn't be put in this situation. There are other AEW women's roster, all the stereotypical kind of horseshit stuff. I think Billy Starks has a ton of potential personally. Mm-hmm. I mean, just keep in the back of your mind, she's 18 years old. She got a long time to really kind of blossom if she's already this good. And that's where the potential's at, right? She's already this good and she's 18. So projected out going forward 5-6 years, where's she going to be at?
Yeah. And I mean, she looks better in the ring than Jade Cargill does. She just doesn't look the part like Jade Cargill does, right?
Yeah, but also that takes time, right? 18 years, I talk about this all the time. I talk about people become like, if you go look at these high school football recruits, right? These dudes, when they're 16, 17, coming out of high school, and they take their, say they're a big 5-star recruit, and then they get signed by Alabama. Within like 2 years, they look completely different, right?
Yeah,
and it's
for
because
sure.
you're able to full-time invest into your body
Yeah.
and to work out, and you have access to the greatest nutrition and to the greatest trainer. So like, yeah, I mean, Billy Starks looks like and she's still in like phenomenal shape. I mean,
Oh yeah, and
she probably
I
will
would
never get to like any kind of Jade Cargill level, but like,
right. And what I said wasn't like a slight on her. It was
no, no,
just like,
no,
yeah, because Jade, is older, and has been able to, like, she's fully matured, and like you said, she's able to commit full time to this. Like Billy went and did this on her spring break.
right? Like it's yeah, and so and again, that feeds into like, she's only going to get better at this because
Yeah,
she's never been able in her life to be able to fully focus on wrestling.
yeah,
So now, post high school, being signed to AEW, she can do this full time, nonstop. 7 days a week, training and getting ready to wrestle and be a professional wrestler full time. Like, that's a big jump.
So do we know, is she officially signed with them?
I think Tony Schiavone let it leak, right?
Oh, he might have.
I think he let it leaked on the podcast, and I think probably what they're holding off on, announcing is that she'll have some kind of match or some kind of spot here coming up, and they'll do the surprise in the ring.
All elite.
You're all
Yeah.
elite, yeah, and they'll have a little feel good moment, and
So yeah, she'll probably start out on like Dark or something, and then work her way up. Like once she's done with school, I would think. Then, right? Excuse me.
probably, yeah, that's what I would think. I would, if I had to pencil in AEW, I'm not so sure that I wouldn't let Saraya, Tony Storm, and Ruby Soho get a hold of Billy Starks and convince her to join their side. Just because I'm a fan of like just a Swerve.
Mm-hmm.
I am a fan of Swerve, the wrestler. He's also badass, but like just swerving, and so like having the white meat young babyface just come in, that feels too obvious.
Yeah.
But like letting her come in and letting her side with like the bad girls of the group, who like are kind of a bad influence, like that opens up a lot of cool storytelling avenues there.
Yeah, because she could kind of ease into it, right?
Yeah, and you could have like Saraya have this thing, be like, I was young once, I was your age, like come under my wing, I'll show you what to do, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, but she could just kind of be in the background for a little while too, just learning, just getting the exposure on TV, and then on the side beat the shit out of somebody after a match with some of them, and then still work some dark matches or whatever just to get in some reps, and then she could still be getting a name for herself on TV.
Yeah, and then you could build up, you build up then the story of the Britt and the Jamie side of the locker room, and the Tony Storm, Saraya, and Ruby Soho version of the locker room. Like, it's spread throughout the entire women's locker room, right? It's not just beholden to these 6 women.
Yeah.
Like it's a full-on Civil War type thing.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Swerve, that was next up on the list, was the Darby versus Swerve match from last night, AEW. It's a good way to start the show. They went at it pretty hard. I mean, you wouldn't really expect anything less though from Darby. And then we got the MJF promo afterward with him and Darby. And I feel like Darby's getting a lot better with the mic.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if they've been coaching him up or if what's going on there, but I feel like he's getting a lot better. And then Sting came out as well. And that was pretty fun. Not a bad way to start a show off. The rest of the show was just kind of okay, but tell me what you thought about that.
Man, Swerve is fucking amazing. I do not know why this dude is not like at the top of the card. He has everything you want and then some. I'm so glad that they paired him with like Brian Cage and Prince Nana in the Embassy, because that's what they should have done from the get-go. Swerve never should have had 2 freaking dudes who have no idea what it's like to be on national television, be his henchman. He should have had the Brian Cages and the Lance Archers of the world. Like, it should be people like that. Swerve's group should be positioned in the way that like Blackpool Combat Club and the Elite and House of Black are positioned. He should have that kind of cachet. There's no one like this dude, not even in AEW, but in all of wrestling, that moves like him, that has like this herky-jerky kind of offense where these kicks come from different directions. The whole time I was watching this Darby and Swerve match, I was like, this should be for a title, and this should this should be main eventing. Both of these guys are that good, and obviously Darby is being positioned. You know, he's probably going to headline the next pay-per-view in this 4-way match with the Pillars thing, but like Swerve has just kind of been off TV, and it's like a travesty that he's been off TV for any amount of time. He should be on there every week.
Yeah, and when he was on Rampage quite a bit.
Yeah,
so it's good to see him on a Wednesday night.
Yeah, and like even those kicks, man. Those kicks, like, I don't know, it's just so cool.
Yeah, I thought they were going to accidentally murder each other on the outside of the ring at one point. Just in a couple of insane moves. And I mean, the crowd popped like fucking crazy. This all goes back to some of the stuff, like, not the best stories happening right now on AEW, but the crowd popped for some of these moves last night. And that's not the kind of stuff that gets pops on WWE TV. No,
it's a completely, like we talk about this all the time. It's a completely different in-house wrestling style. It's they share very little similarities in like that. The AEW is much more high impact, hard hitting, and we've said ad nauseum all the reasons why that is. The work schedule in WWE just doesn't really allow it. But man, it really is a selling point for AEW, right? Like, even when the stories suck, you can just get fucking Darby Allin and Swerve at the top of the show for like 20 minutes, and it's like a 4.5-star match.
Yeah.
And these dudes look like they could have done it for an hour,
Yeah.
And then, Darby gets the win, and then I really liked Darby's and MJF's confrontation at the beginning of the promo, because it was like they were hitting on something that I think MJF's character needs to be hit with, which is basically like, you're really going to regret all this when you get older. Mm-hmm. And I really thought they dropped the ball when Sting came out, because Sting kind of just made a joke of the whole thing. When Sting was coming out, I thought what was going to happen was Sting was basically going to try to act like a father figure to MJF, similar to the way he has Darby. And Sting was going to be like, look, I know that you feel like you need to do anything to be the champion, but like, Max, when you get old and you're broken and like you're alone, it's not going to be such a compelling sight. And like, trust, like, I'm the old timer. I've seen guys like you. My contemporaries came and went and got busted up and were broken and died alone. And that's going to be you. Instead, he just did this whole thing with the pom-poms, and I was like, this is such a fucking missed opportunity. There's no reason for Sting to come out then.
Yeah, the pom-pom thing was fucking awkward.
Yeah, it was, I thought it just got hokey, where I thought it was like getting real serious, and then it became a joke.
Yeah. I thought his main reason, though, for being out there was because, we've talked about it for a little bit, like, it's probably almost it for him. And so he basically officially said it last night. He's like, Showtime is over soon for me. So I think they'll start leading up to some sort of storyline to write him off, before the year's out. I mean, hell, maybe it happens at Wembley.
How about to say his last match is going to be at Wembley?
Yeah.
Yeah. That'll be one of the selling points for it as well.
Yeah, let's get in the next one. Cassidy versus Buddy Matthews. I tweeted over the weekend, I was a little inebriated, that I thought that Buddy Matthews was going to whip the shit out of Orange Cassidy. I mean, well, he did whip the shit out of Orange Cassidy, but I was like, this is when they take the belt off Orange Cassidy. And I had made peace with it. I'm an Orange Cassidy stan. You like Orange a lot, but I was just like, there's no way they're going to put him over Buddy Matthews with the way that the House of Black is running through everybody right now. And talking about the violence, I thought he had legit busted up his hand when he did that first orange punch on Buddy, and they pulled the bandages and everything off, and the refs were checking him. I was like, I think he's fucking hurt for real. Now did you see anything there that made you think that they were actually checking him out at first just to get a feel for it?
No, because they played up the whole Buddy held up the title when Orange went for the punch. It was all yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But just the way it sounded, I was like, it sounded like something fucking cracked. I didn't know what was going on. I told Carter that I thought he could have actually legit been injured. But yeah, I mean, that was another great match. I do think they probably should have put the belt on Buddy Matthews. What do you think?
Yeah, it would be a little weird if that happened, just because if anybody in that stable is going to have two belts, it's going to be Malachi, right? Because he's the leader. Like I said, Orange Cassidy is just incredible. He is one of the highlights of AEW every single week. I love that he will just fight anybody at any time. And yeah, I mean, can't say enough good things about Orange Cassidy. He is, one of the workhorses for AEW, and it's cool that he has caught on with the fans in the way that he has. People dressing like him. I'm glad everybody's over the whole, this dude is a fucking embarrassment to wrestling, because he's not. Like, Orange Cassidy's one of the best wrestlers on the planet. If you can't recognize that, then you have no business watching wrestling.
Yeah, anybody that still thinks that, and this is one we go back to quite a bit, is him versus Will Ospreay last year at Forbidden Door.
Yeah, I mean, he's incredible. Buddy Matthews is also just incredible. And I think, there's a universe out there somewhere where Buddy Matthews is the AEW World Champion, I think. And he has like a mouthpiece to speak for him. Like to me, when I watch Buddy Matthews wrestle, I'm like, here's a dude that has this size. He has all the athleticism to go with all these smaller dudes in AEW. Like, there's a story that you could tell where Buddy Matthews gets a Paul Heyman type figure, and Buddy never has to talk, and Buddy just becomes this wrestling machine. And his Paul Heyman type advocate does all the talking for him, and is basically like, Buddy Matthews is the top of the fucking mountain in AEW. He looks the part. He wrestles the part. No one can topple him. And he's presented as like a straight up wrestling beast in the way that like Brock Lesnar was a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Like, I just think he has that kind of potential when you just look at him. I mean, the dude is yoked to the fucking gills.
Yeah.
And his stuff looks so impactful, and he's like so fast. It's like everything you want in a wrestler.
Yeah.
And he's kind of playing second fiddle in a stable right now, which is still a badass stable, by the way. I love House of Black. Yeah. And I love that, he has a prominent role in it. But I don't know if they've even come close to tapping out the potential of how they can present Buddy Matthews to this AEW fan base.
Am I crazy, or did the music change? Or did he just use a different song than the normal House of Black music? Because that's not the same song House of Black has been coming out.
No. Each one of the guys have their own individual song.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So like Brody King has his own individual song. Buddy has his. Malachi has his, and then they all have the House of Black. Like when they're a trio, they have that one.
I was thinking for some reason they were all using the same music.
No, because Julia Hart on Dark, I think, has her own music. It all starts with the members of the House of Black, Please Rise, but then it goes into whatever their individual thing is. Yeah.
Maybe I just got fucked up because I saw they actually had a font up that said House of Black or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I think all those fonts are the same.
Yeah.
They're little Titan. Well, I call them Titantron. That's not what it's called. That's what it was called back in the day, WWE. Yeah. The little video board.
Sure.
All has that in it, yeah.
So it's official. The Bullet Club is AEW. Should have, I guess it went without saying when Jay White switched over to AEW, but they actually had the little vignette last night. Him and Juice Robinson.
Bullet Club Gold.
Yeah.
So they're going to have a gold Bullet Club shirt and probably fucking sell them like hotcakes.
Oh, yeah. for sure. So it was interesting last night because there was, Sting's reference to Cody, and then Cody was in the Bullet Club video package, which I thought was interesting because it's like they kind of avoided him in the past. I mean, he's been brought up, I guess, here and there, but I thought that was interesting. And then we got the return of Jeff Hardy.
Kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah, you could kind of see it coming, though, when they were talking about, this is clearly a numbers issue. And they just kept harping on that.
Oh, after the fact. Yeah. When it was time for it to happen, it was pretty obvious Jeff was going to come back. But it seems like Jeff just like, if you would have given me like, what's percentage chance that Jeff Hardy comes back Wednesday night, I'd have been like, I don't know, 0. They hadn't even fucking done any kind of like teasing. Like, why would he come back?
Right.
He didn't do any dancing, by the way, which kind of disappointed me.
I did think about that because, like, he came down pretty quick and the crowd was fucking into it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he's in the ring. I was like, well, at least he didn't come in fucking dancing this time.
that will
Matt's
live on
the shit
forever.
beat out of him. Yeah.
That will live on forever. That was such a great. I'm glad that it happened because it's such a memeable moment, and it's just one of those stupid ass things about wrestling, like. Jeff's first debut, his brother's getting the shit kicked out of him. He's just coming down the ramp dancing.
Yeah.
You can't do that twice though. You gotta run down all the way the second time.
Yeah. By all accounts, he's on pretty thin ice, so you hope he can keep his shit together.
This has to be it for him, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. What are they gonna do with them though? Like, because what is the Hardy Boys don't really have anything. Like the time to put them as the tag team champions was the first time around, right?
Yeah.
And have them, they should have been going up against the Young Bucks when Jeff first came into AEW. But now this second go around with this re-debut, so to speak.
They ain't finna take the titles off FTR.
No, and like the Young Bucks have their thing going on. And I don't know if anybody's interested. Yeah, they're not going to take the titles off FTR. Plus, is anybody interested in an FTR versus Hardy Boys match? Like both Matt and Jeff, their better days are way behind them, right? In terms of like in ring.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what FTR feast on, is that they just put on these classic matches. Like the whole gimmick is that we're the best tag team wrestlers and we have the best matches. They're not really going to have a 5-6 star match with the Hardy Boys at this point. So. I don't know. I guess they're just going to feud with Ethan Page and the Firm, which okay. I don't know. It's odd. It's just bad timing all around. All on it. It's a botched. I think you would have to come to the conclusion that Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy being in AEW has been kind of a botch.
Yeah, I mean, Matt. It was odd for Matt because he came in while they were playing the fucking Jacksonville amphitheater during the pandemic,
And he came in as broken Matt Hardy.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. I think you could be right. Like, it does kind of suck because they're both, like you said, at the end of their careers. I mean, in terms of like what they can do in ring, like Jeff still looks a little better than Matt, but that ain't saying a whole lot. I don't know, man. It will be interesting to see where they go from here.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I just want to see. Like, what's the story? Obviously, they're going to keep doing house shows, and just for merchandising ideas you can do, it makes a lot of sense to have the Hardy name, the T-shirts and the fucking house shows and shit like that. That's part of the reason why AEW wanted to sign Ric Flair a couple years ago. Remember those rumors? Just for the merchandise alone, right? To put Ric Flair on a T-shirt, you can sell some. But yeah, we'll see where the Hardys go from here. I think all the interesting stories they could be doing right now are tied up in something else. So, and it kind of sucks for Ethan Page too, because we've talked about how much potential he has, and now he's got to do this thing.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. So wrapping up the week in AEW with All Access, I know you said before that you didn't get a chance to see it. I didn't think this episode was as good as some of the previous weeks. They're still focusing with Britt. and the Bucks backstage, and Sammy and Ty Mello. Um, I, this is probably just me, maybe, but there was entirely too much of Ty last night, just being like, "Well, I just want somebody to listen to my ideas, and I want to get in a match because I'm not in this pay-per-view match, and I haven't been in a singles match since we started doing stuff on screen together." I'm like, well, maybe y'all should have thought about that. And maybe you could have jumped, because it's like they're still leaning into that. Like, take a cue. Maybe that's why Tony is like, I don't know what we're going to do. She doesn't, I mean, I don't guess she necessarily fits anywhere into the main story right now with the Outcasts versus Britt and them. But yeah, it was just way too much of her complaining about lack of screen time last night. And I get it. It's frustrating. But then it looks like next week is going to probably focus on, I guess she and Ruby had some real life beef and got a little stiff in the ring with each other maybe. And had some words. So it looks like that's where that's heading next week on the show.
Yeah, I remember they busted her nose.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, remember Ruby had to take that time off because Ty Mello hit her with that, whatever she calls it, which is just a dangerous looking move anyway, where it's like, it's the go to sleep, but it's from a weird, like, what was it called? Where a weird kind of thing where she's like spinning her into her knee. The person giving the move doesn't have a lot of control, and the person taking the move doesn't have a lot of control, and they just smacked her right in the nose and broke her nose.
Yeah, shit, I forgot about that.
Yeah. That's what that was. And of course, we have to preface all this by saying this could just be reality TV show bullshit, right? And it could all be a work. Yeah, but like, again, like we talk about, this is why you need a writing staff. You can have writing staff that can pitch these people and have them do something, where that way they don't just disappear off television for weeks at a time.
Yeah.
But also, like, you got to know your role, man. And I know everybody wants to be, everybody wants to be the champion, but everybody can't be the champion, right? So, there's a lot of utility in understanding what your role is and trying to be the best version of it that you can be and get fans on your side. So, like I said, I didn't watch this week's episode, so I don't know. I know a lot of people were complaining, or not complaining, but were pointing out what you said, that like Ty Mello didn't come off looking that great in this week's episode. I'm just kind of let down by the whole All Access thing because I really thought we were going to focus more on Adam Cole.
Yeah.
We ain't seen him was he in this week's episode?
No, she mentioned that it was not the same there without him, but that's got to come back up soon, right? Like,
well, hey, I thought he was the star of the show. When they announced it, it got announced with Adam and Britt's picture. And then Adam's debut back was in conjunction with the premiere of the show. So I was like, oh shit. After watching the first episode, I was like, damn, Britt's great in this. Adam's going to be great in this. Like, and then like he wasn't in last week's, and I was like, oh, okay. Well, I mean, it was still a pretty good episode. Britt was in it. And then, people were talking about this week, and there was no mention of Adam Cole. And I was like, him recovering from his concussions, like that's
big
the
story.
That's the main story, right? That's what fans want to see.
Well, you mentioned before that they've shown him with his mom and them in one of the previews, so that's got to be coming up again soon. There was a nice little moment with Britt and Tony Schiavone at like a little hotel cafe or whatever, and I never really put a lot of. I thought about it a little bit, but I never really put a ton of thought into like what her schedule must be like. So like a lot of times she'll wrestle on Wednesday night and she's back in her dental office on Thursday morning. I just assume like she probably is off work on Thursday. She probably works like Monday and Friday or Monday and Tuesday and then travels on Tuesday night, gets to work Wednesday, preps the match, whatever, travels on Thursday. But I guess if she's close enough, she gets home, because she was talking about getting off a flight at 4:00 or some shit and then being in the office by 8:00. And this is like the week before Full Gear or some shit. And I was like, damn, girl.
Yeah, that's wild. Because she's got to be making good money, or like enough money to not have to do that. And I'm sure she's still keeping the dental thing because she's talked about so much how she loves that. And, that's a passion of hers too. And that was really important for her to be able to continue to have that practice as she signed to AEW. But you have to wonder if at some point as AEW gets more programming and if they decide to take up a live event schedule and all the things that come with that, if there's going to have to be a fork in the road at some point in a choice.
Yeah.
And you would have to think she would choose wrestling, I would think, because you can do dentistry. She can be 60, still being a dentist. She can't be 60, still taking pile drivers in the ring. So
true.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to watch it tonight though. And anytime I can get any kind of Tony Schiavone on screen, I'm sure he comes off really well during this episode. He seems like just a really likable guy.
Yeah, because they've had this weird relationship on screen, but you knew that they were friends and for real in real life. So, but he's also he kind of toes the line of sitting there with her as her friend, but also as someone in authority in the company. He kind of makes her step down off the ledge a little bit when she's talking about certain things. So it's pretty interesting to see that dynamic play out on screen. But then, they're laughing and having fun. But at one point you can see he's kind of hey, now we might need to reel that in just a little bit.
Yeah. And he's a dude. I mean, he's seen it all, right? He's seen the rise and fall of WCW. There's nothing new to him. That's why I thought it was really great hire in the first place for AEW. And then it's even better that they've promoted him within so much, just because you need guys like that. Especially if you're Tony, who has Tony Khan, that really has no experience leading a locker room and leading a bunch of wrestlers and being in the wrestling business. He's been a billionaire, but he hasn't done this. And, one doesn't necessarily correlate with the other. So you want to surround yourself with different guys. I think if Jim Ross was in better health, Jim Ross would be another guy. He would be featured pretty heavily backstage, but I think his health issues have just caught up with him too much, and he just can't. He either can't do that or he's just not willing to at this point. Yeah. But that's why you go out and you get a Pat Buck and a Jerry Lynn and all these dudes who, Dean Malenko, dudes who have just been in the business for forever. Need so many. You need to build up that kind of infrastructure, not only in just a wrestling company, but in any company. If you were starting any kind of company, you want it filled with people who have kind of done it before.
Yeah, and then Christopher Daniels, speaking of... Christopher
Daniels, too, is another one, yeah.
Yeah, he had a pretty pivotal scene last night with the Young Bucks. So, it's interesting. I knew that he had kind of gotten out of the actual in-ring stuff, but they he came back in here and there in the last year, which I thought was a little odd. But he's definitely got a backstage presence and is, coming in pretty handy back there, it looks like.
I think he's head of talent relations. Is that what I think that's what he is.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's a real similar title to Tony Schiavone. But, I think he probably answers to Tony at this point. I could be wrong about that. But last thing, kind of out of the ring related, there's a podcast I listen to. I've got 2 or 3 that I listen to every week. Almost every week, and Never Not Funny is one of them with Jimmy Pardo. He's sort of like the comedian's comedian from way back, and it's a weird show to listen to. When the first time I ever listened to it, probably 8-9 years ago, I listened to it because I'd seen a couple friends talking about it online, and so I picked out a couple episodes with certain guests that were on there. He has a lot of comedian friends that are on there, and sometimes they're just writers or whatever. Sometimes they're people I've never, most of the time, a lot of times, quite frankly, they're people I've never heard of. But sometimes he'll get just random guests on. And this week, Colt Cabana was on. And I was like, well, this is going to be interesting because I don't think Jimmy cares at all about wrestling. But apparently Colt Cabana was a huge Never Not Funny fan. Because Colt, has done some stand-up and still does stand-up or whatever.
Well, he does improv, if you'll remember, Corey.
Yeah, that's right. That is correct. But he, so yeah, I guess I don't know if he hit them up to see if he could be on the show or whatever, but he fit right in with the show. And if you never listen to it, they spend 30 to 40 minutes almost before the guest is even on the show. They're just kind of talking about whatever happened to them for the week. It's like him and a co-host, and then they've got an intern, quote unquote intern, that's been there with them forever, note taker, whatever, and then the video audio guy, Elliot. But yeah, man, Colt was awesome. He talked about a lot of stuff, and he might have gotten Jimmy convinced into going to see a match or two every now and then. But it was kind of funny because Jimmy doesn't know shit about wrestling, so he didn't know, like, he doesn't do any research. They just get in there and start talking, right? So he was just asking him about like how he got started and how does this work and how does that work and what happens if you're in a big company like WWE and then you're not anymore, and so on and so forth. And then but like he never, it was none of like, well, why aren't you on TV more, or tell me about CM Punk. It's like none of that stuff. So it was real interesting and a little odd because, like, on the one hand, Colt was probably like, I'm glad I don't have to talk about any of that shit.
Right.
So it was definitely interesting. But then, like, Colt's still out there, like, going out and throwing first pitches at ball games when AEW's in certain towns, because I guess that's his role now, is to kind of represent AEW in that form of fashion. But it does seem a little weird that they're like, because he's like, hey, I'm going to be representing AEW. I'm throwing out the first pitch in Milwaukee on Monday or Tuesday or whatever. I'm like, yeah, but you ain't been on TV in a hot minute. Like, I don't know, man. You think they could at least get him on Ring of Honor or something?
Well, I think a funny story. I think he did debut on Ring of Honor. I think he did at the tapings. I think.
Oh, really?
That's going to come out this third. There actually is tonight. We record this on Thursday. So Ring of Honor is tonight. I think he makes his return back. Yeah, I saw that spoiler picture.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, everything I've ever read, no one outside of Phil Brooks has ever had a bad thing to say about Colt Cabana. So that might tell you all you would need to know about old Phil Brooks. There was a rumor I saw. We talked about this potential Saturday show that's coming up. There was a rumor I saw on Twitter that was just like the Saturday show is for Punk, because they're going to split the rosters because Punk can't be around the Elite and the Elite can't be around him.
Yeah.
If that's the case, that's wild. That these dudes are in their mid-40s and can't fucking squash a beef to try to make some money. But I wouldn't put much stock into that, I don't think.
Yeah.
But
I saw the headline, but I didn't read the article. I just saw that it was like they could split the roster if the Saturday show happens, but I didn't read it. That's interesting.
I mean, this is the last thing I'll say. If I was Tony Khan, I would sit Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks and CM Punk down in a room and just sit at the head of the table and say, I don't give a shit what any of y'all fucking feel like emotionally. I don't care if you fucking hate each other. We're going to figure out how to make some money out of this, or everybody can leave this damn company. I don't give a shit. Like,
yeah.
Tony seems like the most laid-back billionaire in the world, because if this was Jeff Bezos that was a fucking wrestling fan and started up AEW, you think these motherfuckers are doing this shit with him? No. Jeff Bezos probably like, I'll fucking – you think you know some shit. I'll do some Illuminati type shit. You don't do what I say. I got fucking jets and demonic possessions and all kinds of whatever the fuck the damn Bezos has got going on. All kinds of shit. Bezos might damn buy the Washington football team.
No, he's out.
Oh, is he out?
Yes. About 30 minutes before we started recording, it looked like the group that Magic Johnson's affiliated with looks like they got something set to go.
Damn.
I think even your employer was the one that I read it from. I could be wrong.
I was really hoping that Jeff Bezos was going to buy it, because I just feel like the Bezos versus Jerry Jones stories that would go out there would just be endlessly entertaining. Yeah. Those two guys going back and forth. Because, Jerry's like old school. He'll let something slip that ain't supposed to be out there,
Yeah. He can't keep his mouth shut.
No, he can't. And he loves the camera, right? He's the only owner that has post-game press conferences. So, all right. Well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, I think that's going to do it, man. It'd be interesting to see how everything plays out. Like, if they do announce a Saturday show, how soon is that going to be? And because you got to think, like, it'll still be a few months out once they make the announcement before it actually happens.
Yeah, and I mean, we got WrestleMania Well, I remember it used to just be called Backlash, but apparently now it's WrestleMania Backlash.
Yeah.
That's coming up. That's down in Puerto Rico, so that'll be. Even if the build up to WrestleMania Backlash is not good, the fucking Puerto Rico show I think is gonna be off the charts because that crowd is gonna be absolutely on fire. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe it will be. I always forget too. Like sometimes it's like 3 weeks before the next fucking premium live event.
Oh
or
yeah,
whatever.
you don't have to wait a long time. And they're gonna have Bad Bunny, like the biggest musical act in the world is gonna be wrestling, probably. Or not probably. They announced it, so it is.
Yeah, I was gonna say he gonna wrestle somebody.
So, he's in the Rey Mysterio.
Yeah.
Man, that crowd's gonna be. I personally think, you know how crazy that Cardiff crowd was for Clash of the Castle. I think this Puerto Rican crowd is gonna, put that one to shame. Yeah, because there's crazy old school Puerto Rican stories where like fans were stabbing wrestlers. They were that much into this shit. Had to get down like back in the 80s and stuff. Like Carlos Colon, like if he ever there was fear that like if he lost the match, the fucking crowd might kill the bad guy. You know what I mean? Like that kind of level of heat going on down there. So, and it's been a while since WWE's been back in Puerto Rico. So these I think these people down here they're waiting for it. And then the Bad Bunny is just, I mean, that's a cherry on top of everything. I think it's gonna be insane. I would love to go, honestly.
Get you a couple thou and take off, man.
Man, I don't know. I've been to Puerto Rico. It's a great country. I really loved it down there. It was beautiful. This was before all the hurricanes and stuff. My wife and I went for our honeymoon, and I loved the people were incredibly nice. We stayed in San Juan. All of that was just the architecture. The food was fantastic. We had the beautiful beaches. We had a great time. So I would love to go down to WrestleMania Backlash and just beautiful beaches plus wrestling. Like, I mean, what more you want?
Hell yeah. Well, let's end it on that note, man. We appreciate y'all listening to us. If you don't follow us already, we're on Twitter and Instagram at Alabama Slam Pod, and you can find us on Facebook. Just search for the Alabama Slam Podcast, and we're also part of a network of other podcasters and writers called the Alabama Take. You can go to thealabamatake.com and follow us over there. You can follow the Alabama Take on basically every social media that exists. And you can also get a Alabama Slam t-shirt at tpublic.com if you want. Just go to tpublic.com and search for Alabama Slam and get one, and throw a couple of bucks our way. That would be appreciative. It helps keep maintain the Alabama Take website where all of this is sort of based and collected. So yeah, man, that's all I got. Patrick, you got any final thoughts?
Nope, ain't got nothing.
I hear you, man. Well, that's it, man. We'll talk to y'all next week.
Later.